friends. My name is Stephanie Romero, and I am the founder and executive director of Awaken Pittsburgh. I want to welcome you to our podcast, The Ripple Effect. Awaken Pittsburgh is a nonprofit dedicated to fostering well-being, empathy, and compassion for all by teaching and encouraging mindfulness and meditation practices. I also want to take a moment to let you know that Awaken Pittsburgh offers many other opportunities for practice and connection. For example, you can join our online community, which features a space to more deeply explore the topics we cover with our guests. We have weekly posts to spark thought, practice, and reflection. I hope you will come join us to explore, connect with others, and deepen your practice. You can find out more at awakenpittsburgh.org. Welcome to the Ripple Effect podcast. This month we're exploring the topic of welcoming, and my guest this week is Neysha Arclay. Neysha is a personal transformation advisor and life coach, guiding leaders to overcome burnout, heal, and get their minds and energy to work for them. I'm so excited to be talking to Neysha. Well, Neysha, thank you so much for agreeing to be on our podcast. And I'm really excited to talk about our topic of welcoming with you and hear just more about you and get to know you better.
I am very excited, Stephanie. I cannot wait to jump into the conversation and um, learn from each other. I am very excited for how this unfolds.
Great. So I would love to know first, just to kind of understand your background with mindfulness or meditation and how that happened for you and what role it plays in your life.
Stephanie, I have to say, I'm not sure if you have heard this a lot, but mine is an eclectic journey. I am actually an engineer by training, and I started with mindfulness practice, specifically meditation, when I was 17. I was always very inquisitive and challenging the religious norms in a very Catholic family. And I found my place at 17 in a meditation. Of course, I then went to engineering school and then life between work, kids, family, etc. It can get a little bit hectic. And at the peak of that hecticness, I went back fast and furious to the practice that I knew and loved in order to find some calmness in my life. So I would say from 17 up until that period in time, it was on and off. I was not super consistent. And about 15 years ago, I said, no, I need this in my life. So now it's a recurrent practice, very diligent, very disciplined.
That's awesome. We have that strict Catholic background in common.
Yes.
Yeah, so I share that with you. I also rebelled against it right around that same age. Yeah, I went to 12 years of Catholic school.
Me too.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot. Very interestingly, I have to say that my mom and my dad were born and raised in a very small town in Puerto Rico, so it was extra Catholic. However, my father indulged a lot the inquisitiveness and the searching. So we will spend hours in the library, and at the point in time, the internet was coming up, so we will spend more hours in the internet. Um, reading about the Council of Nicaea, and how the Bible was dissected. I was just trying to prove him wrong. He was trying to make a case for religion. It never went anywhere, but I truly cherish those moments where he allowed me just to explore.
I love that. That's such a beautiful story. And it makes me think too, like that aspect of being open and curious is like part of what we teach as one of the
Yes.
characteristics of mindfulness and meditation.
I couldn't agree with you more, which is the perfect segue to welcoming. I think um, without welcoming that curiosity and uh, being very, very observant and aware of how your preconceived notions of how things should be play into your life, and then trying to take a step back from those to observe with curiosity is just the recipe for many, many things in your lives as it relates to growth. So I couldn't agree with you anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you're connecting it to growth, to personal growth, because I think when we have closed mindedness, right?
Hmm.
When we've decided there's only one way,
Yeah.
that does limit our potential and our growth.
Well, and let's be honest, Stephanie, if all of that close-mindedness is influenced by the environments that we are exposed to, that's why I encourage every young person in the planet. What should I do? Travel. That's what you should do. With your first
I
several
love it.
paychecks, travel so that you can see different perspectives because it will challenge what you were raised. I always tell my clients, hey, if I told you that child marriages are approved, you will flip out. But if I told you and we were in another country where that's normal, then you wouldn't think much of it. So it's just, we don't even realize how much we are conditioned, and it is very, very important to observe and be curious and challenge what we think is normal. At the end of the day, that's the only way that we are going to break patterns of limitations in order to achieve our breakthroughs in our life.
Yeah, I love that. And I remember traveling years and years ago with someone who had not ever really traveled, and they were noticing like the light switches are different,
Yes,
the plugs are different, the door handles open differently, like all of these things that you don't even think of, that you take for granted as like the normal quote unquote way to do things. Like absolutely not. Like there are 100 different ways you can maybe do a light switch. Why do we have the one we have? It's, you know, random
because it
maybe.
is.
Yeah, it
Yes,
is. But is it
I
right? Is it
agree.
wrong? Not
No.
necessarily, right?
No, not really. I that's perfectly stated. That's exactly my same mindset. I used to travel. That's where I spent my first several paychecks when I went to my first professional job, traveling, and I actually travel a lot by myself because I didn't want the influence of friends wanted to do a particular thing or just preventing me from exploring, which is why I love exploring. I think that actually tr- uh, just manifests in my life in many areas, not only on my practice of mindfulness and meditation, but in everything I do. Just why is it like that, and
Mhm.
why do we have to do it like that, and why can it not be different?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's a really amazing way to talk about welcoming, and from that place of curiosity and exploration,
Hmm.
right? Because I think if that's your approach to life, right, it automatically gives you that openness and that welcoming. So I really love that framing for this conversation, that we started there,
Yes.
that we started there.
Absolutely. And it's very, very important to for listeners to understand that it doesn't come in a snap, right? It's something like every practice that you have to basically let it unfold. I think the most important is to observe where your preconceived notion of what it should be, those expectations, that prejudgment comes to play, and recognize it. Hey, here it comes again. My belief system, my upbringing is bringing something. No, let's take a step back. So eventually it will become automatic that you become curious, but it is a process.
Yeah. And I think what you're describing with that is, that old saying, the fish doesn't see the water that they swim in,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so even with your example of travel, like that's pulling you out and put you into a different pond.
Yep.
And you're now noticing, oh, the temperature's different, the water feels different, everything feels different. If we come back though to thinking about meditation, I
Mhm.
wonder if you have any thoughts on how welcoming has worked in your actual meditation practice.
Stephanie is very, very interesting. I started meditating in my late teens. And then the practice was not consistent. I would come in and out of it, as we talked before. But every single time that a long period of time would pass between the previous meditation and the new one, the process was the same. I would sit down, I would get distracted. Then I was angry because I was distracted. Then I was guilty because I was angry and basically not taking advantage of the actual purpose of the practice. So by being welcoming, I learned to live with those distractions as part of the process. Learn to observe what was coming into my mind and needed attention, and then gently guide myself back to the practice instead of that judgment that it needed to be a certain way and not giving myself the compassion I needed. So welcoming the distraction as knowing that it was a process that I was going to keep evolving. And to this day, now I am a meditation teacher. I teach that to my students a lot. It's like, you know what, there are distractions. Observe them from what they are, right? Your mind trying to keep you safe instead of going places that you don't even know through your meditation practice.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing that I heard in what you were describing is your process of kind of getting upset with yourself for things not going the way you wanted them to go then became self-aggressive.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right? That's what
Totally.
I heard you saying. And that defeats the whole purpose of
Yeah.
why we want to meditate. So are we creating more self-aggression in the process of meditating by the way we're approaching it? Or as you said so beautifully, are we able to sit with those distractions, sit with those emotions and be open, let
Yeah.
it settle, and then we actually get to the place that we wanted by letting them be there.
Absolutely, knowing that they are eventually going to pass
Yeah.
and they are going to go away. Again, it is a process. It took me many, many years to be more self-compassionate. But yeah, we all do it, not only with
Yep.
meditation,
Oh,
in many other things in our life. But I think we defeat the purpose, like you said, when we approach it from the anger or guilt.
right, right, exactly. And I think too what you're saying is one of those things like once we learn that through our meditation, it's easier to take it out of the meditation practice and bring
Yes.
that welcoming of the whole experience of our lives into other areas.
Agree. 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 When there's a challenge coming along and we are pulling our hairs, instead of pulling our hair, saying, no, 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 no. What is this trying to teach me?
Mm.
And when there's a person that is abrasive towards ourselves, no, 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 it's not this person. Why specifically is this person triggering in me? So that welcoming of that curiosity aspect of what are the specifics and how those interconnect with us, because it may be also a call for healing. So,
Yeah, say a little bit more about that healing piece. I'd love to hear
Absolutely.
what you have, what's there for you with that. Yeah.
um, Stephanie, I am a firm believer that each and every person that surrounds us is a mirror for us. Um, I see you out there and I say, "Oh my goodness, how beautiful Stephanie is." Well, there's a part of my soul that also sees some beautifulness connected with it because we are all one. Um, the same happens when we find a person that is not in alignment with what we believe or how we act or how we interact. And again, through my practice and my many, many studies, I have discovered that the person may not be in alignment, and that's fine, but it might not trigger me if that aspect of myself was healed. For example, I was in corporate America and there was always this person trying to diminish me and trying to take my ideas as his own. And yes, yes, there are many people like that. But if it wasn't the part of myself that felt unheard, unworthy, or not valuable enough, if I had healed that aspect, this person wouldn't have triggered me as much. It's kind of the same concept I tell. Uh, there are people who say, "Oh, in my job, they just want this particular persona." When I'm working with clients, they want this particular persona, and they call it the high potentials, and I am not there. I'm like, okay, if I was calling you blonde and you know that you're not blonde, would that bother you? You would probably chuckle. So, what is it that this naming or this persona is triggering within you? What wound needs to come out in order for you to transcend that and then work on that? And eventually, the aggravation will go away.
Thank you for that. That was really beautiful. It's a really well put. Often we think about, in Awaken Pittsburgh, we work with a lot of folks with trauma,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And that trauma gets triggered in the same way you're describing
yep.
a work environment. That trauma gets triggered because it's not healed yet, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to make a clarification. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have trauma because no one was killed in my family or I didn't have a catastrophe growing up." There's big trauma and there's little trauma. We all have some sort of trauma in our life, and those triggers from situations, circumstances, experiences, and other people are always pointing towards what needs healing within us.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. It's like trauma with a capital T and trauma with a small t, right?
Yes,
There's the small, and you can't go through life. It's just impossible without some, at least small t traumas, you know?
absolutely.
It's just
Absolutely.
impossible. It's part of our human condition. And I
Yes.
think, I feel agreement with you that like part of our path through meditation is healing that woundedness.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think where the meditation comes super handy. I don't think. I am a firm believer that where the meditation comes super handy in trauma is because it helps us release a little bit of that judgment that we apply to the trauma, meaning, oh, that was unfair. I didn't deserve that. That I that shouldn't have happened to me, etc., etc. If we dissolve a little bit of that, it will create a little bit of a light for us to see the experience of the trauma for what it was. So meditation is incredibly important because it regulates our emotional system. in order for us to observe. And sometimes we're even lucky enough to observe from objective perspective our own situation.
Yeah, and I think we can shift this back to that concept of welcoming, that we're actually able to welcome the woundedness.
Yes,
We're actually
absolutely.
able to welcome the experience of feeling that wound and
Yes.
not, again, be self aggressive about it, right?
Hmm.
But just be with it in the way that we need so that healing can happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how we've journeyed through to that. Yeah. And I guess I'm really curious about if you have, we've been talking about self compassion in this welcoming, and I'm curious if there's something about the welcoming and compassion towards the other. So, what about that person at work that really was rude, that, was stealing your ideas? How do we, we work internally for ourselves, but how does that welcoming work for you in relationship, especially with those folks that are difficult?
So it took some time. What I'm going to say may trigger a lot of people because a lot of people may say, like my clients say, that's impossible. So making the caveat and the space, it will take time to get here. I want to share that this practice of meditation and being welcoming and dissolving those preconceived notions of what it should be allow me to approach those people that do not resonate with me with curiosity. Um, you, while they are triggering you because of a particular perspective, you're probably triggering them because another particular perspective. And we came together at this impasse and we're triggering each other. And what typically happens is that we become defensive and push that away. And guess what's going to happen, Stephanie? 6 months later, something else is going to happen that is going to trigger the same one. And you're going to say, I cannot believe this is happening to me again. Well, guess what? You were ready to heal it, but you push it away. And now you have to heal it again, and it's going to keep happening until you heal it. So in terms of relationship with those difficult people, is approaching it with the curiosity of, okay, this person is triggering me right now. I really want to put my hands on their throat, but I'm not going to do that because I am going to observe, maybe not immediately because need to interact with this person, but that's going to be the subject of my journaling tonight, maybe. And I'm going to go ahead and explore what particular aspect is this person is triggering in me. And it could be as easy as, well, this person was mean. This person was, and you call whatever name you want to. Okay, but why? Why? If the person was doing it to another person, what would I tell that other person? What would I observe? So that this just sifting that experience as much as possible in a way that it allows you to know the specific of what is being triggered is the aspect of welcoming that I like the most because it opens the path towards that little seed that needs a little bit TLC within you for healing.
I love this idea of maybe not in the moment.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
not in the moment, but come back to it, right?
Yes.
Because I think so often we have these experiences and we don't take the extra time to sit with it later,
Yes.
right? And oftentimes when I'm working with teachers, for example, and the kids make you crazy sometimes, right?
Of course.
That comes up for you and you can't do that self-care in the moment because you have 30 small humans in your
Yeah.
care, so you're in charge of that. So I often say, like, can you just put a word on a post-it note and put it on your desk so that you remember later, I need to tend to that part of me that just got wounded.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore because if you do not, Stephanie, guess what? Tomorrow, that kid is going to act up again.
Absolutely.
and you're gonna get angry air.
That's it.
And
That's it.
and it compounds until by the end of the year you have to
That's
get
right.
that kid transferred.
Yeah.
So yes, very, very important. Maybe not in the moment, but always to come back to it.
That's right. That's right. And I think that's the piece we often miss.
Yes.
We have the reaction and we feel self-righteous or justified or whatever, but then we don't take the time later to explore it, to have that curiosity, to ask
Yeah.
why, or even, if something was very difficult, to just love on ourselves and just say, wow, that was so hard.
Yes,
That was so hard. I need a little self-care. That was very hard.
absolutely. I always recommend that you go back to it, even if it's after you pamper yourself. Because going back to it and going through the details just dissolves that mini trauma that you just have, just dissolve it for the next time that you encounter. But I love your idea, Stephanie, of just a little pampering. That was so hard. I'll take care of you. In my case, I'll take care of you, Nisha. Let's go get ice cream or a piece of chocolate, and then we're going to journal about it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But to just honor the
Yes,
experience, right? And like you said, not pushing it away, sitting
correct.
with it and just honoring, like, oh, that was really hard. Because I think sometimes too, culturally, we tend to minimize, push
Hmm.
through, tough it out, all
Yeah,
of that. And if there's a wound there, you need to
yes.
honor that that's what it is.
Or my favorite pet peeve these days. I just don't want to rock the boat, or I don't want to shake things up in my work
Mm-hmm.
scenarios. If you sit with it and you process it in the correct way, you can come tomorrow and then have a very productive conversation. I was the queen of going having a hard moment during the middle of a meeting with someone, and then sometimes that same afternoon, most of the time the next day, inviting the person for coffee and say, you know what, I don't even like the way that went, but we have to work together. What is it that we can do? But that cannot happen until you sit with it and understand where is it pointing within you.
Yeah, and that's so important. That's the pause, right? So for me, meditation helps us create a pause where
Yes.
we do not need to react right now. We don't
Hmm.
have to. We can
Yeah,
take the time we need to sit with it. I don't know if you know Resma Menachem. He's a beautiful writer. If you don't know him, I love him. But he calls it metabolizing our pain,
I love it.
right? Metabolizing our trauma, metabolizing our pain. If we don't do that work, it becomes like something that controls us subconsciously.
I agree. And if you just nail right there the top benefit that I would say from meditation, just lowering your emotional defenses in order for you to become observant and welcome whatever experience as what it is, just calling your attention for the next step in your life.
Yeah. And that's really important. We're on this topic of kind of difficult people. So there's the welcoming aspect, and you just put it as welcoming whatever's there. But
Hmm.
you're also clearly saying, like, you can put a boundary, you can have that compassionate conversation where you're like,
Yeah,
that didn't feel right in that conversation.
I think talking about boundaries, there's a I there's two aspects. There's welcoming with the intent of observing and welcoming with the intent of engaging, right? Um, we're talking about this difficult person and we can create that boundary. I didn't like this, I don't work like this, and I we need to be to work together. Let's define together what's the best method of interacting. But then there's also the people that we love. that we basically welcome with their needs and their demands. And sometimes you're not up for it, right? It's very, very important because as well as meditation create that space for, like you just brought up the example of metabolizing, it also creates the space for you to think about, okay, is what I'm being asked for align with who I am? And is it going to be for a greater good or just to make this person feel better? And you can choose to take it or not take it. Just leave it there.
I think what you just named is something super powerful because I don't think we're always raised or acculturated to think of alignment, right?
Yes.
So, I'm just thinking, because my background is K to 12 education, how do we support young people in choosing a career?
Yes.
What do you enjoy, or how are you going to make money?
Yes.
Do we do
Yes.
a deep exploration on like what is actually in alignment with what you feel like your purpose is on the planet?
Um,
Totally different way to approach that
oh my
idea.
goodness, Stephanie. I think we're gonna be here for the rest of the evening talking about this because this is my cup of tea. Its work is the same K-12 and it works the same 12 to 50. Right? We again going to that aspect of being conditioned in our society to expect something, right? We fall, we just miss taking a look at what energizes us versus what depleted us. And again, that purpose doesn't have to be your money making thing, your bread and butter. It could be your side hustle or your hobby, but that's going to energize you for you to do your day-to-day activities. So I love the way that you're approaching it because I think we miss, based on how K to 12 education is structured these days. um, we very early on condition kids to go basically and compete with each other when we all should be a web of strength and weaknesses that help each other elevate us. And that part of that elevation needs to be fostering while we're already strong, um, in order to make ourselves and the collectives stronger as we develop.
I love that. Early in my path of leadership, and I just strangely end up doing my doctorate on leadership. My doctorate's in education leadership. But early in my path of like feeling into my own leadership, one of the things that really struck me is good leaders know what they're good at and what they're bad at, and compensate and create a team where all of the pieces are there, even the pieces they don't have. So that, again, coming back to welcoming, like you have to welcome your deficiencies. We all have them, and be very
Yes.
clear and be very honest. Like, this is what I'm good at. I know it, it's a strength. And this is what I'm terrible at. And I need to find those people on my team that can help me with that so that we can all be successful.
And I think you just mentioned the key to it, Stephanie. The key to it is being okay with that weakness.
Yes, yes.
And when we are so emotionally stimulated by everything that surrounds us, that do not create that space to have some introspection, if you cannot meditate, I understand. Not everyone can meditate, but at least have some space for introspection so that you
Yes,
can be okay with what you're not good at. You don't need
that's
to
right.
be okay with
Yeah,
great at everything. You just need to know where to find it. And
that's it.
probably is in your teammate next to you.
That's right.
So, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that that's also this idea like we're not perfect and we need to be okay. Like no one has
Yes.
everything. No one does. So
Yes.
why do you want that for yourself? Because I think that's also what I hear from people is that struggle against perfectionism. You
Yeah.
that struggle against perfectionism. Can we welcome the imperfect? Can we be okay with that? And
Yes.
then know there are so many other people that can compliment us. We don't
Oh,
have to do it.
absolutely. It's so very funny because my main language is Spanish, and but I like to write a lot. So obviously there's here and there things that happen. And I want to tell you something. The first person that you have to appease when that criticism come that you didn't do it perfectly is yourself. Once you say, it's okay, yep, I'm not good at that, you disarm that other person immediately, that other person that's criticizing you. But first, you have to come at peace with yourself. Hey, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. When I first started the nonprofit, the first person that I hired was a bookkeeper because I'm just terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. Like, no, please don't make me do the accounting.
Stephanie, you and I are on the same camp. I have to do it if
Ugh,
there's nothing else, but I prefer to use my energy doing other more exciting stuff.
exactly, exactly. Well, Nisa, I've been asking everyone if they have a favorite mindfulness or meditation or even other resource that you could share with our listeners, because I just love for folks, maybe it's all my
Yeah.
years of teaching to have homework. So
Love
something
it.
they could look up.
So, so I definitely love meditation, and I'm gonna pause here a second. A lot of my clients, the first thing that they tell me is, I cannot meditate. Well, you do not have to be in a cabin in Tibet to meditate. Meditation is just disconnecting your mind from the hamster wheel and um, focusing inwards. And you can do it while gardening. You can do it while doing the dishes, folding laundry, any activity that basically your brain is doesn't have to think much. And you can detach. That can serve as your meditation. But aside from meditation, I love a very good breathing practice. I have several breathing exercises that are my go-to. And then um, I also love if I have 5 minutes and have know that I will have a very contentious meeting following up, I quickly do a mindfulness body scan, going through each and every area of my body and basically tensing it up and releasing. Those three are my go-to. Um, so those, I would say, there are many other things that I use to ground myself and come to center, but those three are my go-to practices.
I love those. And I will just put a shameless plug in. We teach all of those in our programs.
Oh, there you go. I
Shameless plug if
love
you haven't been through our program yet and you want to learn them. And they're
I love it.
probably, yeah, they're probably, we have a page with recordings of practice. I think all of them are on there as well.
Oh, that's
Uh,
perfect. Well, go for it. All the listeners, link in the description here because those are incredibly important. And one last thing that I want to say, you don't need to wait until things are hard to do these type of
That's
practices.
right.
Kick off your day with them. Then you basically step out ahead of your day and already receive and welcome whatever comes with an observant eye rather than who's out to get me. Because guess what? If you start your day and get out of the door and think, "Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen today and who's going to get me," you're going to be proven right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I found people choose different times of day to meditate. You know, what works best for you is great, but
Yep.
I really find starting my day with a practice
Yes.
shifts the rest of my day. And what often will happen with me is if I don't do it in the morning, the day takes over my life.
Yes,
And then the next thing I know, it's dinner time. And then the next thing I know, it's, getting ready. It's like already
yes,
9:30 and blah, blah, blah. So like for me, if I don't have the time up front, I often lose it.
I
Like
agree.
I won't find it again in the day because it's like a train that's left the station. Once the day starts, it
And
just
guess
takes
what,
over.
Stephanie? Little by little, the next day, then you may have the time. But then you say, well, yesterday was so busy when I didn't have the time. I might as well jump ahead about the things that I left from doing yesterday. So there will always be a compounding
Yep,
excuse that
yep,
pulls
yep,
you back from that practice. And until you create and carve, it could, it
yep,
doesn't have to be even 30 minutes. Go with 10 minutes, 15
yep,
minutes,
yep.
but carve it at the beginning of the day. You set yourself up for success, and you're going to show yourself in a better way for anyone that comes in touch with you.
I agree 100%. And the other thing that I find when I work with people is if they can start that, then they really notice the shift and then they
Yes.
want to do more,
Yes.
right? It motivates you once you start to
Yes.
feel the difference in your life. So
Absolutely.
I think that is a fantastic piece of advice. So, Neysha, is there anything else that I didn't ask about that you were hoping to share with folks on this call?
I just want to stress a little bit. So, we are living in challenging times. Things are becoming hectier and hectier by
Yeah.
the minute. And I want to welcome everyone to um, just becoming an observant of their own reactions. Because when you fall prey to the discomfort that some emotions bring in your life, you create a cascading effect that fuels the fire that is already happening around you. So I just want to invite each and every one of us, myself included, because I'm not perfect, to welcome those challenging experiences and observing what is it that's triggering within you before you react. Because right now, I don't think we can afford too much of this collective you versus me separation that is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're naming something really important and I think we've all felt the polarization
Yes.
politically, socially, the us versus them. It's really exaggerated in the last years. So I love that. How do we settle that in ourselves? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it all starts within us. I am not going to get into politics or social
Yeah.
challenges, but it starts within us. It could be, I don't know, your neighbor that you love. One day came and flip around and said something. Just pause and observe that this may be an anomaly. And instead of reacting, let's open up to try to understand a little bit better.
I love it. I think we should end with that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Say Something Studios.